we are going to talk an idea about building a more inclusive internet where everyone can have a voice. Nan Bharata Kudimagan. Raise hand if you understood these words. Nan Bharata Kudimagan. That is written in Tamil in front of you. And that's a story of millions and billions. Those who do not understand English at all. So there is a girl called Namya in a village. She has an aspiration to become a doctor and treat people. But the biggest barrier she stumbles upon is the language, because she has not read English in her childhood. To do any professional life, she understood that she must learn English. And this is not just the story of Namya, this was the story of mine too, when I was studying in a village called Khairthal. So some facts which we must understand before I paint the picture of this whole world. 94% of the world's population do not speak English as a first language. 94%. How many of you understood that the world is just speaking English? This is completely contrast to what we believe. 75% of internet content is in English. So imagine, it's a complete contrast. We have the largest population who do not speak English as a first language, and we have the entire content in internet in English. 80% of internet users don't speak English. Countries like China, Russia, Germany, Japan, and India is not very far. India speaks almost 90% of the population do not speak English as a first language. As per the 2011 census, we had only 11% people choosing English as a first language. We have a large population. This theme is around these words. The limit of my language means it limits my world. So we have an unconnected world, which means what? Internet is the power which is in everybody's hand. A small device in our hand called mobile gives us access to almost everything what we desire in the world in today's time. But one of the important things which requires is to understand English. These numbers in front of you, which speaks about 4.4 billion people are not speaking English, is very powerful data to understand that these people are going to be suffering from accessing the power of internet. This brings to the English access of the internet, which means to access an internet, we need to understand the domain names. To go to a website, you need a domain name. So what is the history of a domain name? That we understand, we will understand the whole dynamics of the way internet got evolved. AjayData.com is a domain name in English, but datamail.bharat is a domain name in Hindi. A domain name has two constructs, which is divided by a dot. The right side of the dot and the left side of the dot. Every domain name. The right side of the dot is known as top level domain name. The left side of the dot is known as second level domain name. The right side of the dot, that is called .com, .net. In front of you, you can see .com was delegated in the root DNS server in 1985. .net also in 1985. .org, .int, .edu, .gov, .mil. This was the top level domain name, original top level domain name. That is where we got all the domain names in the world to start with, so long back. But you notice there is no top level domain name which represents language. It is only in English which was constructed. So it's a natural progression of internet in English. Datamail.bharat is actually also a valid domain name today. The .bharat is a top level domain name served by Government of India, and we have a right to choose the left side of the domain name, that is Datamail, which I choose. You all can choose today. In 2009, after 1985, in 2009, first time, another top level domain name of a language based domain name got delegated in the root zone servers, which we call that DNS, in 2009 for Egypt. So first time the world witnessed the barrier for the accessing internet was getting broken in 2009. So since 1985, till 2009, 100% internet could be accessed only in English. But that's just a start. When a domain name gets available in the language of person's choice, such as me, if I don't understand English at all, I will need a domain name to be typed in my own language. So for example, if I want to understand about J. Shri Periwal group of schools, I must type the domain name in English. Otherwise, I will not know about that school because I do not understand J, as I said in the beginning about the Tamil language. I had a tough time to understand these three words to speak to all of you. So this is the similar situation which people will have to understand English who don't understand English at all. To break the language barrier, to access that internet, the domain names play a very vital role because that's a gateway to access any website, access any content. Even if you want to do google.com, you understand you need to type in google.com, Goole.com. And for somebody it could be completely Greek. So the new internet requires to be built around the languages to serve 94% of the world. It is not just about accessing or knowing English few words like our ABCD class of people, which I call them Aya, Bai, Chauke the driver, may understand go, water, come, here, there, all those things. But will they be comfortable if you give them their pay slip in English? And if you give them the pay slip in Hindi? Or you give them the prescription of the doctor in Hindi or in English? Imagine a person who do not understand English and you give him, doctor gives him a prescription in English. What happens in his life? He has no clue what is written. He is 100% dependent on somebody to even write his prescription. Then the next problem occurs. He goes to a prescription shop. He gets the medicine. He do not know whether he got the same medicine or not. And then he also don't know which medicine to take when. So his entire life is paralyzed. So he is suffering from a disease which he wants to get treated for, but he also feels paralyzed because of a language. Do we need to break that barrier? I believe that we need to all break that barrier in people's life. How do we do that? So internet becomes a very powerful force in our life today. So domain names in personal language is the extremely important thing. Equal importance to domain in English and other languages is important. And why I say so, in today's time it is not. So if I type data mail on Google, it will take it as a keyword, not as a domain name. So the search engines have to understand that there are domain names other than English. WhatsApp has to understand if I type a domain name, it should do the hyperlinking. You understand that it becomes the typeable, clickable link. All those things have to happen on the language-based domains. So equal importance is the context here. Having universal acceptance of domain name, I am going to share about a little bit in the next slides. And tools and technologies to empower. So how do you type in easily? How do you read that easily? All those things becomes very important. This becomes the universal acceptance point. Even if I have a domain name, will it work that way? That question comes because the whole internet got designed in such a fashion that it only validates English characters. So if I give my email address to the government site website today, that is my Hindi email address, ajay@data.bharat, it invalidates it. It says it is not a valid email ID. That is where the concept comes of universal acceptance. That my domain name and my email address must be accepted in all software applications. Equally as all the domain names of the world gets accepted which are in English, which do not have non-English characters. So there are 5 pillars I want to present to you to break the language barrier. First is to accept. So I go to a website and I type in my email address. You all children and teachers will understand if my validation on the website is done only A to Z to be accepted, I will not be able to type in my email address. So accept is one important pillar which has to pass in every software and application. Second is the validation. Once I type in and say submit, then it should not say it's an invalid email ID because the checking has been done or a syntax has been done on the ASCII based email addresses. The process it well. For whatever purpose I am on a website, it should process it as it's a valid email address. It should store it in the database at the back end in the right format, in the right way, in the way it is required so that it does not get distorted later and displayed back whenever it is required. These 5 pillars are the universal acceptance pillars. They are global pillars. This is designed by the internet community with almost 700 companies in the world. Almost all the companies in the world are working on these pillars. But this is something which world should know, that whenever we design a website, to break that language barrier, our software applications must follow the universal acceptance law. This brings to the connected world. So what is that connected world? Connected world is if every person on earth can have a domain name which he can access in his own language. So if I want to register, understand about our Honorable Prime Minister, pmo.gov.in, and I do not know English, I know Tamil, can I access it? Because if it is in my own language, it brings trust, it brings confidence, it brings knowledge about me, which I am deprived of because of English. Same is with the email address. If my email address is in my own language, this brings the communicability. There are many cases available in the world and stories available in the world where the email ID has been given to a person who do not understand English. His life changed because suddenly he is not dependent on somebody. His bank statement comes to her automatically, her railway ticket comes to her automatically, and she can understand all those things much better than dependent on somebody else. And awareness. And awareness is a very important aspect. No matter how many talks we do, if we do not take this message and do not take an action with all the students listening here and everybody who listens to this video later, we create our website in the domain name of your preferred customers. We are missing almost 50% of our target audience, target customers, because they do not understand English. They understand some language. Hence, it is very critical and important to understand if you want to cater the whole North India, for example, where English is not a dominant language, Hindi is. If Hindi speaking people is your customer and you create a website and a domain named English, we are not doing justice to our business and not justice to them who cannot access to your site. Hence, it is important to break that barrier and bring people online by giving them access in their own language, in their own domain name. So this is my end. In the age of connectivity, let us be architects of inclusivity. Let us remember that the strength of the internet lies not only in its wires and data, but in its ability to bridge the gaps that divide us. By advocating for universal acceptance, we are not just breaking down linguistic barriers, we are building bridges of understanding that span the globe. Together, we can ensure that no one is left behind in the digital age. Thank you very much.